It's now 6:30, Saida.
Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and start?
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. A few notes for you, particularly if this is your first meeting with us. You'll notice that you are muted and unable to mute yourself. After each presentation, the co-chairs may call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can ask to be recognized by raising your virtual hand, and you can do that by going to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. It's important not to raise your physical hands or wave at the screen because we may not be able to see you among the participants. If you are on a phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and *6 to unmute. Once you're recognized by a co-chair, I'll unmute you and you may be prompted to confirm unmuting on your device. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you can access the raise hand feature by clicking the participants button on the menu at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand. The chat function is available for technical support only, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. You can send me a chat if you're having any trouble and I can help walk you through any issues you may be having. Jane.
Thank you so much, Saida. So with that, we're going to start. This is the March meeting of the Landmarks Committee of Community Board 8. We have 4 applications to hear tonight. We are here for the context and appropriateness of each application within the historic district. And I think one is also an individual landmark. One application is for an individual landmark. We will hear from the applicant, then we will go to the public. Then we will go into executive session and formulate a resolution. That resolution will be presented at the full board meeting, which is also on Zoom on this coming Wednesday evening. With that, we're going to start. The first application is 40 East 72nd Street. Is the applicant here?
Yes, the applicant is here. Let me unmute.
This is 972 Fifth Avenue. It's Architectural Preservation Studio, a building designed by McKim, and White, constructed between 1902 and 1906. Application is for the installation of the Little Prince sculpture on the entrance wall along the sidewalk, along with some exterior lighting. So I'm assuming the applicant is here, the architectural firm?
Yes.
And could I have the name of who's doing the presenting?
Stephanie Gerard.
Okay, very good. Well, you may start. You may want to do a screen share.
Sure. Can everyone see it?
Yes, thank you. I can anyway.
Okay, great. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for your time. I'm Stephanie Gerard, architect and project manager from Architectural Preservation Studio. We are preservation consultants, and we have prepared the application materials for this presentation of 2 projects at 972 Fifth Avenue, also currently known as French Cultural Services in New York, and Villa Albertine, and historically as the Payne Whitney House. The Embassy of France in the United States owns and maintains the house. I will present the projects with Nadir Ben Khalifa, the lighting designer from Boa Light Studio in New York and Paris. First, I will provide some background information for context and then specific information about the project. French Cultural Services and Villa Albertine promote French arts, literature, cinema, language, and higher education across the United States. They build partnerships between French and American artists, institutions, and universities on both sides of the Atlantic. The arts and culture are at the center of their mission, and we believe this aligns with the design intent of these projects. The Embassy of France is aware of the historical importance of this structure and has undertaken major projects and a significant and continual investment in the house, including the restoration of the main rotunda, the restoration of the Venetian room just east of the rotunda, the second floor reception spaces, the top floor wood studio, and contemporary lighting and landscaping of the south courtyard. Our firm is also overseeing the masonry facade restoration currently underway. The two proposed projects are presented to continue the enhancement and preservation of the house while opening it up to contemporary creation and promotion of arts. The first project involves installing a sculpture of the Little Prince on the existing stone wall alongside the sidewalk. The second one is lighting installation on the street facade facing Fifth Avenue that wraps just around the south elevation. The structure is an individual landmark located within the Metropolitan Museum Historic District and is mid-block and faces Central Park between East 78 and East 79 streets. This image is the designation report and historic picture showing the street facade shortly after the construction was completed in 1906. The house was designed in the style of the High Italian Renaissance by Stamford White of McKean, Mead and White. It is a 5-story granite structure articulated with a slightly curved facade, with wood double-hung windows and a double entrance bronze doors. To the north is 973 Fifth Avenue, also designed by Stamford White. This slide shows the Sanborn map from 1896, where we can clearly see the property before the construction, and the Bromley map dated 1916, 10 years after the construction. Also, a historic photograph dated 1911 from the New York Public Library collection showing the building and the adjacent properties. This is the building. This is the building today with all of the buildings on the same block. From left to right, the properties include the Ukrainian Institute of America, 973 Fifth Avenue, a private residence, 972 Fifth Avenue, our project, or at least what you can see of it, and the James Duke House, currently housing the Institute of Fine Arts, NYU, also listed as an individual landmark. The first project is sponsored by the American Society of Le Souvenir Français in the United States. Le Souvenir Français is a nonprofit association founded in 1887, which honors the memory of all of those who fought and died for France in any conflict. More than 2,000 soldiers fought for France in the US and were buried here. Thierry Chaunu, the president, is here with us today and can answer any questions you might have at the end of this presentation. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, a French author, is best known for his renowned masterpiece, The Little Prince. The novella was written in New York City and Long Island in 1942 and is one of the best-selling and most translated books ever published. There is a plaque erected in 2000 by Le Souvenir Français on Central Park South, near where he lived while writing the book. However, no sculpture of the Little Prince can be found anywhere in New York City, contrasting with numerous places worldwide with monuments and sculptures dedicated to the Little Prince and its author. Le Souvenir Français would like to pay homage to a great Frenchman who lived in the United States, was an aviator in World War II, and wrote one of the world's most iconic and beloved books by installing a sculpture in Manhattan, 80 years after its publication. There is no better place for the sculpture than French Cultural Services, which promotes French art and artists in the US. Jean-Marc Depas, a French sculptor that we can see here in his workshop, was commissioned once again by Le Souvenir Français for a sculpture of the Little Prince. He worked on several models, and this one was selected for the project. The proposed sculpture would be installed on the stone wall located south of the front entrance, along the courtyard, approximately 4.5 feet south of the existing gate. The dimension of the sculpture would be approximately 4 feet high, 1.5 feet wide and deep. The sculpture would be anchored to the existing wall with 4 stainless steel 3/8-inch diameter pins bedded in epoxy and extending at least 3 inches into sound stone. The project includes an 8x10 plaque with information regarding the author, the sculpture, and the commissioner. Both the sculpture and the plaque would be in bronze, similar to the door of the main entrance of the house. The last picture includes an at-scale rendering of how the work would integrate into the existing environment. This concludes the presentation of the first project. I will now turn the presentation over to Nadir to discuss the light installation.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Nadir Benkhalifa. Nice to meet you. I'm from Boa Light Studio. Thank you for giving me some time for us to and the opportunity to talk about our project with the Villa Albertine. Stephanie, I'm gonna share you.
You want to share your screen?
If you want, yeah, because we have to start with the video maybe, as we said.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. So now everybody see my screen?
We see, oh, yes.
Okay. So we are, BOA is a collective, a group of artists and designers and architects, and we create illuminations all around the world. France, for example, in New York, we did Hall des Lumières. We did a architectural enlightenment inside the building and outside the building in the facade. So we are already did the work inside the building of Villa Albertine, and the second step of our work is to create a light installation in the facade in purpose to talk about the culture and la lumière, the light in France, which is the culture, the main way to explain our culture here in France. Because sorry for my English, I forgot to tell you. So I start the presentation with this little video to explain the main artistic work that we want to create. So our work is our way to enlight buildings in Boa is to create sculptures in urban spaces. For example, in Paris at Place de la République, in Marseille at the museum Le Muséum, and different. We also did a light work in Villa Médicis in Rome, and our work. Our interventions are always very. We like to create sculptures. Talk about the phase B of the building. During the day we have the phase A, and during the night we like to create something else to that's we call a phase B. So and to talk about what happened inside the building. So this is a cultural building. So we want to install this light work on the facade to express the activity of inside the building. So now I'm gonna share with you our folder, our presentation. So this is the first step of the presentation. So here we are. We would like to install glass sculptures on the facade, very thin, between the columns, and glasses. We want to express our work between the glass and the light. We would like to put LEDs, light materials, in back of the glasses, the sculptural glasses that we would create in France. and with the warm and the cold light, they're gonna move like you saw in the video. We're gonna create abstract moving light installation. And yes, so this class are security glasses that we're gonna sculpt here in France with a French craftsman, and we're gonna use the light to enlight this glass on the facade and create that sculpture. So basically, we would like to install these LED sculptural lines with glass between the columns on the facade, from the first to the last level of the facade. This is in the west elevation. You're gonna see that we have the four lines on the west elevation, and after that we have one line in the south elevation, because we would like to have this effect when the people are coming from the south to the north, or the other way. Gonna see this movement of light in the south. We would like to use the corner of the building, in fact, and this is the way that we would like to install them. These sculptural lights, LEDs, are basically used by sculptural glass and support frame and the hanging system. The hanging system is the first thing that we would like to put in the facade to hang our light lines. That composed also with the light inside. So this red line is just to express that the light is inside the metallical frame that hold these sculptural glasses. We would like to hang them in the facade here, from the upper and lower part of the LEDs. The sculptures, and we would like to use. We will gonna show you how we would like to hang them. So this is the hanging principle. So we have a part. We have a hanging system. This hanging system, we're gonna put it on the facade, and after that we bring our light, our luminaire, and we're gonna sliding it from the top to down, and we're gonna hang it, make it. I don't know how to say. We're gonna drill with drills. We're gonna fix it, and after that, this is the four dimensions of the glass sculptural lights. So this is the fixing system. We would like to use the join between the stones. We have several stones in the building and joints between them. We will not drill on the stones. We would like to preserve them. This installation is not definitely installed. We can remove it if we want. For that, we would like to use the join between the stones. We would create a chemical sealing. With a simple chemical sealing, we would like to install the skirt hanging system, which will be on the facade, and after that, we're gonna put the LEDs on it. So here the fixation principle. So this, I don't know if we can make it bigger. Excuse me. Yes. So we we see here two stones, and we have a joint between these two stones, and we're gonna make a drill in the joint, put a chemical sealing and a thread rod, and this help us to fixing our hanging system very strongly. We already work with engineers in Villa Albertines, the company which are renovating the facade now. We would like to continue the work with them, and we will gonna hire an engineer to calculate how long this chemical sealing need to be on the facade. We already work a little bit with them, and they said regarding of the weight of these glasses, we're gonna use for the biggest one, for example, maximum three drills on the joints. So here are some other pictures explaining that our installation is a video installation. It's like a screen, but it's an abstract enlightenment screen. It's not, we will not be able to create a message on it, or putting a picture is very abstract and very simple to see that we will not use it for advertising or things like that. It's only art, and these LEDs gonna unlight the glasses and give this nice effect of diffraction of the light by the glasses, and the light will gonna move very slowly during the nights, and slowly moving, and this artwork will work from the end of the day and at the sunset until midnight, 1 o'clock maximum during the summer. And when the city is sleeping, our installation will be sleeping also. So this is all day and every day expression of artwork that happen inside the building. We would like to express it on the facade. I think this is my last page. Yes.
Well, perhaps you could just tell us the dimensions. How high are each one of those glass? Well, they look in the picture almost like glass rods, but I understand they're sculptures with glass behind them. How high are they?
So this is the biggest one is 16 feet. The bigger one is 16.
Okay.
And the smallest one is 6.65 feet. We have 4
I'm
dimensions.
sorry, that's the biggest is 16 feet. And how high is the smallest?
The smallest is 6.56 feet.
I'm not sure. I can in English, it's 6 feet and a certain amount of inches would be but I'm a little confused. But anyway, so altogether, I counted like on the front elevation, there will be 4 rods and times 4 floors. So that's 20. And on the west or the south facing elevation, there'll be 1 on each floor, which is another 4. So it's approximately what? 5 times 4, 20 altogether, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And if you could get me a definite height on the smallest, and how many 16 feet ones are going in and how many? I see on the top floor, they're the smaller. Is that right?
Yes, exactly.
And those are the ones that are 6 feet, 0.59 something?
5.6, yes. 6.56.
Oh, I see. And they descend. So the tallest ones are actually at the bottom. I get it. Okay. And how wide is each one of these?
It's 3 centimeters. I forget how to say in English. Sorry. I'm gonna show you the right dimension here.
4 3/4 inches.
Yes, this is the excuse me, I'm gonna tell you. this is
Well, it says,
the width is 434, and the thickness of the glass is 1.14.
1/4 inches. Okay.
Yeah.
And tell me, do I understand you correctly that the joints that you're talking about, you will be piercing some of the historic material on the building?
So, can you repeat, please, the question?
Are you going to be drilling into the historic fabric of the,
No, absolutely
Building.
not.
Only from the joint.
We only just drilling in the joint between the stones.
so that would be like the mortar between the stones?
This is stone 1, this is stone 2, and this is a joint inside between them. And this is where we're gonna drill and put chemical sealing here.
Okay. Okay, just wanted to clarify that. So I'm assuming that's your presentation.
Can you repeat, please?
You're through with your presentation? Because we're going to go to see if anyone is here from the public, and then we'll go to the committee members.
Yes, this concludes both presentations.
Okay, thank you so much. So
welcome.
is Saida, is anyone from the public present who wants to comment?
If you are a member of the public and you have a comment and would like to speak, you can raise your hand by going to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and selecting raise hand.
It doesn't seem like anyone from the public is here. Oh,
We do
I
have
see
one from
someone.
Jason Kaufman. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay.
Confirm unmuting.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
yes, and could you give your address just so we know for the
It's
record?
185 East 80th.
Okay.
So I'm just wondering if those flanges of light have to have moving light. That looks great in the stills without the video where it's just sort of marking off the spaces of the building, but does it have to have this kind of rising smoke or whatever? Does it have to be moving?
No, it can be fixed, but the movement that you saw in the video is a little bit quicker than the reality, because we have to show you quickly how it's the principle, but the light will move very, very slowly. So if you pass by the building, I don't know, at 5 you will see something, and if you pass by 6 you will see different things. You will not see this movement, this quick movement that you saw in the video. The video is just to explain the principle.
I mean, is the purpose to dematerialize the building?
No, it's to express the movement and the light expression of and the activity of the villa. For example, it's weekend. If it's weekend, we're gonna put some different program for the weekends than all the weeks. So, but it's I don't know how to express. It's abstract, moving, very slow moving lights. It's to express the dynamic of the building themselves. That's what happened inside the building.
And are they going to change colors? I mean, if you want.
No, it's just warm and cold white. It's like in the presentation you saw. It's warm and cold white, and it's not. There will be no colors.
Okay.
Mr. Kaufman, does that answer your questions or your inquiries?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just that it's just my aesthetic sense is that it might look nicer without movement over the building, but I'll leave it up to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming. Anyone else from the public?
Thank you.
I see there's someone else, somebody on Terrence.
Terrence, confirm unmuting on your device. Terrence, you should see a prompt to confirm unmuting. There you go.
Okay. Hi,
Can you
Terrence,
give your
Terrence
address,
E.
please?
72 East 93rd Street.
Okay.
What is the duration of the installation?
The installation is, we would like to install it this year, and we didn't talk yet about how many years we're gonna keep it. But the thing is, we can remove it wherever we want and see any difference in the building. So we will not modify the facade. It's very safe for the historical building. We did not fix a timeline with Villa Albertine yet.
Thank you.
Second question, what does the light installation have to do with the book or the author?
I didn't understand, sorry.
Is there a
Why-
correlation between the installation of the little statue on the wall to the lighting?
This is two different projects.
It's two different applications. However, we discussed it with LPC, and they mentioned that they would prefer to have it as a one application. So that's the reason why we've combined both.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the public, Saida?
I don't see any other raised hands, no.
Well, in that case, let's go to the committee and we can start in alphabetical order.
Okay. Elizabeth, confirm unmuting.
Yes, I wasn't quite, I didn't hear the second speaker for all that clearly, so I'll have to pass on a few comments. But one question is, do we have a picture of the building during the day to see what the lights, I assume, will not be on during the day?
Yes,
and
we're
I'd
gonna-
like to see what the building looks like with,
Yeah, I
with
can
the
share it.
lights.
I can share it.
What?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen again, please. So I'm gonna show you how it looks like.
Can you see them, Elizabeth, in this?
No.
He's zooming in.
Oh, yes, now I can. I think that the statue on the separate wall is perfectly okay. The light, this is a new approach to me. I have no faith in being able to do this without damaging some stone somewhere. You know, I'm sure that you've thought it out pretty well, but I've never seen it to go perfectly before. So I question, this is a very handsome building, and although this is an interesting approach, I don't see any point, and I don't think I can support this, the new lighting. But
Thank you, Elizabeth. Oh, go ahead,
but I
Elizabeth.
can support. Okay.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Michelle?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I won't support this application. I know what you're trying to do. Something similar was attempted at the Smithsonian, at the fence up on Fifth Avenue to insert lighting in the space between the limestone. I don't see that this adds anything to the building. I think if anything, it detracts. The building is beautiful. It has a lot of detail. I see the concept is going to be that you won't see it, and as the sun sets, it will become brighter and brighter and brighter in, visually, because while it might be on, it's not as visible until the sun goes down. And so you'll see different increments of the intensity of the light as the sunshine recedes. I don't think this building needs anything like that to add to its attractiveness. It's a beautiful building. I think if anything, this will detract from focusing on the detail. I think if you want to have a lighting exhibition or light sculpture, that's a perfectly appropriate thing to have inside on your premises in an area that's functioning as a museum, and you want to show off or exhibit the light of this particular artist. But for me, it's completely unacceptable on the outside. What I would like to see with the statue, if I may, can I see an actual rendering of it and how it juxtaposes with the proposed lights that you're putting? In other words, is the fence low and sort of a continuation of the facade of the building, or is there any angle on which this statue sits? Can you have a visual of that?
Yes, I can share my screen again and show you. Oops. Share screen.
While you're doing that, is this statue in a smooth bronze or is it textured?
It is going to be slightly textured. So
do you have
you
the
see,
visual of the sculpture on the
yes,
fence?
so I can show you the rendering first. However, it's not exactly what it's going to look like because we use the model to create the rendering. So the rendering shows.
Can you come in real close on that?
Sure. It shows the scale of the sculpture. Doesn't show the texture that it's going to be.
Okay, this is still the clay or the plaster. This is not the bronze.
It's the clay. Yeah, it's not
it's
the
the
bronze.
clay.
Yeah.
So is it going to be cast with that kind of texture? And also, is that the
No.
extent of the detail of the face?
It's going to be the extent of the detail of the face. Yes.
And
And
now
it's not going to be texture like the clay. It's going to be smoother.
And this wall is where?
I'll show you. So if you look at this elevation, that shows 272 Fifth Avenue on the left, and
Yeah.
that's the Duke mentioned on the right. I can show you another elevation. So it's behind this
behind the truck. Okay,
exactly.
so it's a continuation of the facade of the building. And what is, I see it now. So what is there, like a garden behind there, or
yes, it's the courtyard also that belongs to the Embassy of France in the United States.
So it's like the introduction to the courtyard, or?
Yes, with the gate on the left of the
plaque. I'll tell you, I'm not as much opposed to this, but the form of it and the style of it, I would be more comfortable with it if it was more not so I'll call it abstract, but that's not the correct word for it. But if it were more accurate in body, in image and scale. So I would hope that these would be taken as two separate parts. That's up to the chair, but I certainly won't support the lights, and I'm a little concerned about the statue. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I believe also, if I may speak for Nadir, the reason of the lighting project was to highlight the beauty, as you said, of the building. It's an amazing, incredible building. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons was to really highlight this beauty.
Well, let me just respond to that. My feeling about the lights is when the lights are on and at their brightest, that's what your eye will go to. And your eye will not go to the beautiful decorative elements that are just above it or alongside of it or below it. The lighting will take up all of your visual space, especially that it's moving, because the eye goes to something that's moving. So I don't think, if that's what you want to accomplish, I don't think this will do it. But thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Alita?
Thank you. I am so charmed by The Little Prince that I fully support it. I just think it's so endearing. I have to say, I read The Little Prince when I was a kid. My kids read it in their French class, and there is something really, really special about that character. So aside from that, I think it fits into the neighborhood. It's public art, and it doesn't detract or impinge on anything, as opposed to the lights. So as chair of the CB8 Arts Committee, I have to say, I believe strongly in public art installations. On the other hand, this is a landmarks committee, and I'm not sure that it enhances the building to the degree that you think it does. I agree with Michelle that it will be distracting. It won't highlight the detail of the facade, which is what you're trying to do. So, but I'm anxious to hear what my colleagues have to say about the lighting before coming to a definitive decision. I would like to just add that it would be great if the interior of the building were open to the public on occasion, because it is a really special space. I know it is on Open House New York sometimes, but it's just it should be. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
So I believe that you can just walk in the building anytime between 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. because there is a bookstore in the building.
Right.
You can go anytime, and it's actually, as you said, really nice inside, and with the rotunda that has been restored also a few years ago. So,
Oh, thanks for the info.
Sarah?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I think the statue is beautiful, and I'm in full support of the statue. With regard to the lighting, may I ask, are there terms or is there some provision for restoration to the facade if the lights are removed and there is damage to the facade of the building? I'm just asking as it relates to some of the comments that my colleagues have raised. Thank you.
So maybe I can respond to that. I don't know if you want to respond, Nadir. So the intent is not to damage the building at all by installing the lighting fixtures. So, but if for any reason it would happen, then yes, it would be restored, repaired immediately.
And I would like to say that before doing this presentation, we already worked with installing the company that are restoring the facade now, and we talked about it severally, and we talked about engineers, and they install by themselves different publicity things in New York in all the buildings, and they use the same technique to install very heavy publicity panels. So they absolutely not afraid by this, and and the way how we want to install the lights. So if we remove it one day, it will be we will just put material to hold this drill, the drill that we did, and it's all. They already did this kind of installation in New York for, like I said, for publicity panels. Yeah, and just I want to say something about the architecture. These lights are not very strong. These lights are smooth and they move very slowly. So they not just the light, they don't stop at the glass. They enlight a little bit the facade also. They will bring light on the facade when they move, and the details will be not hiding by our lights. Our lights will work with the building. So this facade is absolutely not unlighted during the night. So our light will bring some lights on the facade, and we will see also this beautiful details. I forgot to say that in the beginning, so I would like just to say it after the comments.
Okay, thank you. Saida, who's next?
Thank you. Anthony?
Thank you. I agree certainly with Alita about the statue. I think the statue is just fine. That the wall that it will sit on is not original, and in fact, excuse me, in fact, is the gate which separates it from the house really makes the garden between the Duke Mansion and the Payne Whitney house seem like almost another tenant along the block. I think the statue is fine. I do have a couple of questions about the lights. I understand the desire to just fix the long plate directly to the granite at the mortar joints. What is that plate made of?
It's steel.
If and when it is removed, will in fact it stain the building? Which is always a possibility in New York City's basically toxic climate. Now, my next question has to do, and this may be the only other question, but two questions. One, the panels will be essentially hanging from those plates so that there will be nothing to prevent them from being, I don't know, they're not actually very heavy, so being lifted by a very strong wind or an updraft, and in fact being disturbed. It's just a question, I don't know, but effectively it's just gravity.
No, just not just gravity. First of all, we're gonna put them like this, and we're gonna, I don't know how to say in English, fix them, mechanically.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
It's not just by the
gravity, because from the drawings it looked like a gravity installation. And then the other thing is, you very carefully show us how you plan to get the power to them along the tops of the cornices. How is the power getting out of the building?
Maybe Stéphanie, tu as la présentation. C'est toi qui as la présentation?
Oui.
Yes. From the back of the building, we're gonna go out.
Almost there. Oh, that's
yes, this one. Yeah. We have one point in the window where you see it in the lower floor. Yeah. And after that, the cables, very thin cables, gonna run to the facade through the corners when people can see them because they are in height, and they're gonna run through the facade until the light. Yeah.
And all of this that we see in that kind of highlighted elevation, the rear elevation, all of that will be visible.
These ones
not
are
from
in the
the
back,
street,
not from the street. Yeah. In the back of the building. Yeah. These are little boxes like this.
Yes. I understand. I can't support this. This seems to me to be a lighting installation that is antithetical to the architecture of the building. And I think this building, this house does not need anything. But if I were going to light it, this is exactly not the way I would. So I'm not going to be able to support this. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marco?
Thank you. I think everything has been said, especially for the statue and the rear part. I think it's attractive, makes a lot of sense. Gives some life in the rear of the building. In respect to the lights, I mean, personally myself, my colleague questioned the technical part, which is easily to resolve. You just use different materials and that's it. And you don't have to affect. Just as a matter of technical construction. But the issue what I perceive in this case is this is an individual landmark and the standard has to be higher. You are not a bad designer. I really love your lights, by the way. I like a lot. But the issue is this is an individual landmark that stands by itself. And to increase something in that part, that made me concerned a lot. I wish the best. You're a good designer in lights, definitely. I learned your ideas. But I don't think in this building fit very well lighting. Thank you.
You, Kimberly?
Thanks, Aida. I'm not going to belabor the point. I think everything that needs to be said has been said. I can support the statue, but I'm not comfortable with the changes with the lighting in the front facade.
Okay, thank you. David?
I can support the statue. I think the lighting is very cleverly done. If I knew that it was strictly for a limited period of time, I would consider it, although I would then put in the class that we put the banner of the Jewish Museum where we didn't want them to go even into the joints. But this seems to be less intrusive on the building than the banner for the Jewish Museum. But since it is not going to have a limited life to it, I want to see this on the building. So I can't support the lighting as temporarily beautiful it might be. Thank you.
Jane?
I want to echo what David said. If only there were a time frame on how long this installation would be in place, I would support it. I actually think it's quite beautiful, and I love the way there's sort of a kinetic movement to the lighting. But it really is worrisome that it could be there for 10 years or 20 years or whatever. And that in itself, because there is no time frame on this, I can't support it. But I do want to commend the lighting expert. It is very clever, and I don't mind a modern element like this on an old, beautiful building. Thank you. Does anybody want to propose a resolution? No committee member wants to,
We have Marco. Go ahead, Marco.
Jane, if you don't mind.
yeah, we're going to divide it into two parts.
Okay.
We'll put the statue and the lighting.
So, okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I would like to propose a motion to approve the statue in the back. And that's the motion. Somebody had to second. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by David and Alita.
So I think we can go to a vote on that.
Okay, 1 second while I unmute everyone.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Abstain.
Okay. Alita,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Anthony,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Marco? Marco? Oh, you're muted again. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Kimberly?
Yes.
Great. 1 second while I calculate the vote. Eight in favor and 1 abstention.
So I think, does anybody want to propose a resolution for the lighting installation? It's really like a piece of sculpture on the front elevation.
Michelle.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Am I unmuted? Oh, yeah,
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, motion to disapprove is presented.
Before we vote, Saida, I am going to vote for it because I do think there's something really special about the whole concept. Now we can go to a vote.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Sarah? Sarah?
Abstain.
Okay. Anthony?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jane?
No.
Marco?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
Okay, and the only thing I would suggest is in your whereases that you put in one whereas there is no time frame for the installation of the lighting.
I certainly will put that in. Thank you, David. And
Also, can I ask, and this should be included too, but we didn't ask the question, how many holes, even though it's supposed to go into the mortar, this was one of the issues with the Jewish Museum, if you recall, how many holes will it actually require? Because when you look at these are getting taller as they get to the bottom. And I don't know how many holes per rod into the mortar is actually needed for support. I'm opposed to it on an aesthetic thing, but I think that's information we should have. Do the architects have that information?
Michelle, we
Okay.
voted to disapprove the lighting, so I think it's a moot
You
point.
don't want to put that as a specific in your whereas? You don't want the
I'm
answer
going
the
to put
question?
in that it will disturb the historic material between the masonry.
Okay.
Thank you.
If can I answer or do you want?
I'd like the
You can
answer.
give a
I'd like to
specific
know.
answer.
Okay, so it's minimum 2, but I believe that the biggest one would require 3.
So if you added them all up, what do you have?
20, 60.
45.
45? Okay.
Yes.
I just suggest that it's not so easy. You don't just pull it out and then plug the hole. It's not that easy.
Well,
Anyway,
that's why
it's
maybe why
irrelevant
there's
at
no
the
time
moment.
frame. Well, that may be why
45.
there's no time frame involved because it's going to be very expensive. But thank you, Michelle, and thank you to the applicant. It was a very interesting presentation.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Next application, 40 East 72nd Street. Barry Rice Architects, a neoclassical style building designed by Robert B. Lind and constructed in 1881. Application is for canopy extension. Is Barry Rice here or someone from his firm?
Yes,
I'm
he's here.
Hello. How do you do?
Good, thanks. You can go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready.
I don't have a screen to share, I must say. Saida, do you have the presentation you can put on the screen?
I do. Just give me
Thank you.
one moment. Okay.
Thank you, Saida. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Barry Rice Architects. I'm here to show you the proposed canopy addition to the building at 40 East 72nd Street, between Madison Park on the south side of the street, mid-block. It is a contributing building in the Upper East Side Historic District, originally designed by Robert and Lind, built in 1881, with a facade recreated in the 1920s by Schwartz and Gross. And more recently, that facade altered to provide a central entrance, which is what you see on the elevation on this cover shot here. And that entrance now will, we're proposing to put a canopy on the building. The reason the canopy on the building is a canopy that will be supported from the facade, anchored to, if we could go perhaps to the next picture, Saida, thank you. What 72nd Street is here. Here is the facade. And right here, this little guy here is a fire hydrant, which, because of the rules of the Department of the DOT, the canopy cannot extend to the curb in this particular location because of the proximity of the fire hydrant. And also because the geometry of the fire hydrant distribution along 72nd Street means the fire hydrant cannot be moved away from where the canopy would strike the curb. So in this case, if we can move to the next image, please. The entrance here would be protected by a 4-foot protruding canopy, which would be cantilevered, if you like, from the facade and tied back with bronze metal ties to the facade of the building. And this is where it's shown in this location here. Here's the entrance. Here is the fire hydrant. And here's the new canopy. And here's the fire hydrant here. If we can move to the next slide, please. In section here, you can see the canopy is protruding 4 feet from the facade, with 2 tiebacks here in bronze tied to the facade, with an anchoring system with a escutcheon plate out of bronze here. And through to the next image, please. And here we see on the left the existing condition as it exists today, and on the right, the proposed canopy with a green canvas, with a neutral lining on the underside, with no integral lighting. The lighting is on the facade existing today here. And that's the proposal that we have. There's another image after this that shows in 3 dimensions, a rather crude, but nevertheless a rendering done by the canopy manufacturer that shows the geometry of how the canopy would extend from the facade. That's the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Very clear. I think we need to go to the public.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody in the public have any comments?
Don't see any raised hands from members of the public. Again, you can go to the reactions button at the bottom of your screen and select raise hand.
Well, let's go to the committee and let's go in reverse order.
Okay. Marco?
Thank you, David. Okay, Mr. Rice, Bryce, I'm sorry. The canopy inside, does it have lights?
No lights, no.
No lights at all. Well, I'm going to say that the geometry of the canopy match with the arch of the facade. Makes a lot of sense, that part. The size also is relatively very small because you explained very well that DOT doesn't allow to make bigger. That is, I think, is perfectly fine. The only thing that turned me down is the color that you selected.
Okay.
Sorry, that is a matter of taste.
No problem. May I comment on that?
Oh, sure.
Yes. Well, okay.
Ask the chair first. The chair is
Chair, may I comment on that,
Please,
Mr. Helton?
Tell us
Thank
why
you.
you picked the color.
Yeah, I have about 6 swatches of different colors of green that we have yet to determine which one we want to go with. The landmarks will be working with us on making the final selection along with the co-op board. So that decision has not been made. And so we have the candidates ready to be considered between now and we will go for a landmarks hearing. And I was advised that we don't need to finalize that choice of color, the actual color, at this point by landmarks. It would be a staff level decision. So also there is no final decision on that. All right.
Thank you for your explanation. And thank you, David.
Just to be clear, the color ultimately will be at the decision will be at staff level.
Yes, correct.
And it will not be part of the certificate of appropriateness.
That is what my understanding is as of today. We have yet to meet with the with LPC to review that detail, but that's what I understand from our landmarks consultants. Yes.
Okay. In any event, it's going to be a green color to be decided between landmarks and yourself and members of the board.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Anthony?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought.
Anthony?
Sorry, I didn't realize I came up so fast. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Anthony.
Barry and I worked together several lifetimes ago at Bob Stern's office. I think this is fine. I think the only bit of advice I would offer is to try and find a, how do I say this? A less green, if you know what I mean.
I get it. Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I really like the design of the canopy, how it curves with the building. I thought that was really brilliant. And I also like how it's mounted. So it feels less obtrusive than if there were poles running down the sides at the end of the canopy. And I also agree with Anthony on a less green, but I thought that just the whole design was really thoughtful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alita?
Thank you. Saida, could we see the facade with the canopy again, just for a second, please?
Sure.
I agree on the green while we're waiting.
Can you see it?
No,
Oh, sorry.
there you go. Thank you.
This one.
Well, I don't know. Aesthetically, for me, it's just, I like the mounting. I just don't like the arch. It just looks like something cut in half, maybe because it's wider with the double doors than, and the side, maybe it's just the perspective. I don't know. For some reason, it's just not, I don't like it, but that doesn't mean necessarily that I would vote against it, because I think here it's really just my own aesthetics rather than appropriateness. So I'll listen to Michelle and Elizabeth and David and Jane. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Michelle?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. Have you considered a glass and bronze canopy?
We did. However, the glass and bronze canopies seem to be more akin to the use of, as a hotel entrance rather than a private residential entrance. And I know there are exceptions to this, but on the Upper East Side in the historic district, we were really looking for comparables. And we felt that the fit was for a canvas canopy being more traditionally what's appropriate to the residential buildings in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so I can see that. I can see why you would say that. The thing is, the double doors on this building are so overwhelmingly bronze and glass that this jutting, even though it's only 4 feet, the size, the proportion, that's fine. It just seems out of place to me. It seems like something, it has no relevance to anything else on that facade, and it's just sort of stuck there. And it just doesn't tie in with these doors, that because the canopy is so short, they are in full view. I'm happy they're in full view because they're lovely. And I think the 2 bronze pole or whatever poles, that ties that are fixing them to the building, in contrast to the green canopy, they also stand out like they're coming from nothing. I think that if you had a glass and bronze canopy and then you had the ties of the bronze, the whole thing would make sense and be in keeping with the doors. So while I recognize we are not here to design, I have to consider that this other possibility, this alternative option, to me would be far more in context and appropriate to the building and the historic district. So just because how this sits on this building, I think there are better choices. And I'm glad to hear that you considered it, but I think rather than look for the context in the whole Upper East Side historic community, in this case, I think it would be best for the appropriateness to the building. You know, it's almost like the appropriate frame for a work of art, and I just don't think that this is it. So. But thank you. If is that something you would go back and consider or not? Of course, this is the application before us, but just I would like to know, would you go back?
It is something we have given considerable thought, and I don't know whether we would be going back to reconsider at this juncture, because it's been a lengthy process to come to this point. But we did look at it exhaustively at the options and the alternatives and materials and forms throughout the Upper East Side historic district.
Did cost have something to do with it?
No, no, it was no, it didn't. It was really a consultation between myself and Landmarks consultants, Higgins Quasbar, and discussions with
This is a discussion of the appropriateness of the canopy. It's not a discussion of cost. It's not a discussion of design of other kinds of canopies. We're talking about this specific design. Let's stay with it, please.
Thank you, Michelle. David, Jane, we have a member of the public who would like to speak. I know we already addressed that, but can we give them a chance to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Jim, go ahead.
Great, thank you.
Just give us your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Jim Hoffman. I am a resident and also president of the neighboring building, 36 East 72nd Street. And my only comment is we're very supportive of what Bryce and the owners are trying to do to make the building more aesthetically pleasing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
I'm afraid I do not find this appropriate to the building, to the shape of the current entrance. It looks more like an appendage, particularly with being hung from above with the ropes. So I'm afraid I understand the need to keep the rain off. I'm reminded outside my window right now, but I'm afraid I just can't support this solution.
Thank you. Kimberly?
Thank you, Saida. I don't have anything else to add compared to what my colleague said. There's something, maybe it's the color or the shape, but I'm not going to support this. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Jane?
I just want to hear what David has to say. Thank you.
I fully support it. I think that a canvas canopy is appropriate for a residential building, particularly in the historic district. I think the gesture of following the curve of the opening is absolutely the right thing to do. I think as a proportion, when it's actually built, the 4 feet is going to be adequate, both as a functional issue and I think in proportion to the building, I think it'll look fine. I have no problem with the bronze tiebacks. I think that that's the right thing, given that bronze is going to be the theme of the frame, etc. So I wholeheartedly support this. I think it's very well done.
Thank you, Darren.
So Jane, if you want to comment further.
No, you said it so beautifully. I will support the application.
Thank you. Okay, we need a resolution. If somebody would propose a resolution. Marco?
I would like to put a motion to approve as presented, except obviously the color.
Well, the color, I will write up the color as Barry described it. It's a green color, the final determination to be made between Landmarks and the architect and members of the board.
I think I saw a second from Anthony. Was that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, okay. So I'll go ahead and unmute everyone. Okay.
And you're going to call the roll, please.
Yes. Elizabeth?
No.
Michelle?
No.
Alita?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Marco?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. 1 second while I tally the vote.
Wait, there's me, because I passed. So
Oh, sorry, Alita.
that's okay. I'm just gonna say no, but I may change my mind before full board. Thank you. Or at full board, rather. Thank you.
Okay, Barry, thank you very much.
Thank you very
So-
much, Jim. Thank you, everybody.
The next application is, I'm sorry, I've got it right in front of me, but it's in Carnegie Hill, and I know, here, I'm just pulling it up here. It's 63 East 93rd Street, proposed rear yard addition, rooftop addition. The interior renovation is not our purview. So is the applicant here?
Yes, Joseph Tanny. Second. There you are. Okay.
63, is he, is he
Excellent.
here?
Yes, I am here. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to begin your presentation?
Yes, I shall.
Sure you
I'm
want to do
going
a
to share the
screen
screen. Okay.
And just as I want to make a comment, please give us dimensions. You know, this is really important to our committee, the dimensions of everything.
Okay. So my name is Joseph Towney. I'm a partner at Resolution for Architecture. We're here applying for a 4-story addition to a 4-story townhouse. 63 East 93rd Street sits geographically in the sort of center, if you will, of the Carnegie Hill Historic District. And it also sits on a northern edge. You can see the current Google image from above where 63 is right here, squeezed in the middle, and you can see the larger buildings that sort of surround the other half of the courtyard. The Sanborn maps show that at 15 feet wide, it's been the smallest lot on the block since the beginning, and they start to show the evolution of the larger buildings sort of wrapping around the back. Everything below the red line is in the historic district, and above the red line, it is not. You can see that the smaller buildings have been replaced by one 15-story, one 7, and one 32-story building. We're here in the middle of the block, and the precedent for adding a 4-story addition to a 4-story townhouse is just 3 doors down to this townhouse here. And the idea of sort of filling in this back hole for us creates somewhat of a bookend for these townhouses in the back. The reason why we're talking about the back, we can't see it from the front, but when this tower was built, it created this public courtyard with passage and entry from both 93rd Street and 94th Street. The shaded area here in the corner is sort of the view corridor from which the public can see the addition and the penthouse addition on the roof. We'll show images of that shortly. This is the elevation of 93rd Street, and you can see 63 here is the brownstone, and in many ways, it almost looks like it's been squished by the buildings about it, and it sort of bends it in elevation and in plan. And we get this beautiful transition from the 2 different facades. It translates both in plan and then also in elevation, where it actually starts to step with the cornice to mediate the sort of bigger buildings to the smaller buildings. It's interesting is that it also sort of frames these townhouses in the middle that were designed and built at the same time around 1886, 1888. And ours was designed by A.B. Ogden and Sons and was built in 1891. And what's interesting is 65 right next to it was designed and built at the same time and was at one time a brownstone. It was changed in the 30s, where in the 30s and in the 50s, those facades were changed a bit, removing their stoops. But what's interesting is the 3 are designed in the middle by the same architect, built at the same time, and the 2 flanking townhouses are symmetrical. So it makes for a great composition there in the middle. And then 63 becomes a bookend, if you will, with 55, given the facade steps back, and it sort of frames that. So where at first you look at 63, it looks like this weird building that there wasn't enough room for them. And then if you look closer inspection, you see that little guy's doing a lot of things. The curved building at 55, then on the side facade, that turns the corner, and that's the entry into the public space behind. Here are the tax photos from 1940, and then in 1985, you can see the stoop and the cornice has been removed. And here's a current view of the front facade. We're going to replace the windows, and we're going to submit that under a different application. Otherwise, there's no other work happening to the front. And on the left, you can see the view looking towards the east. And you can see the bend in the facade there. The building actually looks a little wider when you're looking toward the east than it does when you're looking towards the west. And we just get that teeny sliver of the building. Yet, in both straight on the elevation and in perspective up and down the street, the building does a nice job of transitioning both in plan and in elevation. This is the rear facade. And if you look to the left, that's building 65. Our building sits 21 feet back from 65. If you look to the right, you see the three other townhouses to our west, and you can see the precedent for the 4-story addition there to the right at 57. And I'm going to get into the drawings. These are some of the details in the window schedule. And this shows the demolition of the interior.
Well, that's really not our purview, the
Right.
interior. Thank
Right.
you.
And here is the, it will be a slab on grade. And here's the basement plan. And the first floor, second floor, third, and the penthouse on top. The size of the penthouse is 15 feet wide by 18 feet. With the
Let's go back just for a second, because you
Mhm.
said it's a 4-story addition.
Yes,
So the penthouse is the penthouse would be the
I'm sorry.
8th-story.
three stories on a basement. So the penthouse in a sense would be the 5th when looking at it from the rear.
Oh,
We'll-
at rear, the penthouse is the 5th floor.
Yeah, we'll look at it in a section right here. Here's the roof plan. It's the front elevation where you can see.
Let's
the
just go
addition.
back for a second, because
I'm
I'm
sorry.
getting a little confused and I'm going to have to write this up. You
Okay.
said there's going to be a 4-story addition to a 4-story townhouse.
Yes,
So maybe you could walk us through first the rear elevation and then the front elevation. When I look at this, I can see this screen shows the build out at the rear and the penthouse, or the
Yes.
proposed. So I'm sorry, I'm just confused. If
okay.
it's a 4-story addition, I only can see 1 story in this drawing.
I'm sorry, it's a 3-story building. Right,
It's a
with the basement,
3-story
1,
building.
2, 3-story on a cellar. Excuse me, on a basement,
So it's a
on a cellar.
3-story building with
on a basement.
The basement is considered a story.
So that's why
Oh, I
I call it
see.
a
Okay.
4-story addition to the 4. Sorry about that.
Sorry, thank you. Okay, now that I know there's 3 stories plus the basement,
Mhm.
and then you're adding in the rear and at the roof.
Yes,
What are you adding at the rear?
a 4-story addition.
At the rear? And
Yeah,
what
it's
are the
15.
dimensions?
It's 15 feet by 15 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is the existing rear elevation and the proposed elevation on the right. The fenestration gets its cues from its neighbors, and also the tall sort of casement French doors in the existing elevation.
So you're changing the windows. I mean,
Yes.
the windows at the rear elevation are going to be, are they
New.
casement windows and French doors?
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of French doors, and our new proposals are for casement windows.
With, I'm assuming, French doors at the ground level, all right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the rear elevation, the 4 stories.
Yes,
Okay. The rest of the work is at the roof.
yes. Penthouse addition on the top. 15 foot by 18 feet. Plus,
15 feet high by 18 feet wide?
it's 15 feet wide by 18 feet long.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's only 11 feet high at the midpoint of the sloping roof.
Okay,
So the maximum to the very top of the penthouse is 54.5 feet.
from the ground.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Here's the existing section. We're showing this as the building to our east, and we'll unfortunately be covering 2 windows our neighboring building with the penthouse addition.
You'll be covering 2 windows?
Yes. Of 65. It is a,
On which elevation? Is that the west facing elevation?
yes, the west elevation of 65. And it's a multi-family rental building owned by an LLC, and our client.
Well, that's
is-
not our purview.
I'm just mentioning we're reaching out to notify the neighbors regarding the window cover up, that's all.
Covering 2 windows at the west elevation. Okay. At the west of the adjacent building,
Yes,
at the penthouse, with the penthouse addition.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is a section showing the sight lines that it can't be seen from the street.
So it's really, I mean, just to clarify, and I don't mean to belabor these points, but at the roof, you're adding only the penthouse.
Yes,
Okay, so I just got so confused because at the beginning of
I'm
the
sorry.
presentation, you said it was a 4-story addition to a 4-story townhouse. But
Yes,
I
it
see
did. I'm
that the
sorry.
4 stories are actually at the rear.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry about that, Jane.
That's okay.
Here are some other sections. And here is a wall section in the back. Up through the penthouse. And this is a rendering showing the townhouses, our neighbors next door, showing how it relates in both math, scale, and material. And that we see this sort of works with mediating, similar to the way the building does in the front, mediating the smaller 2-story additions with the 4-story townhouses, and then the 6-story buildings that are on the side that then grow to the 15 and the 32-story tower behind us.
Can you just tell me what the rear yard is now and what it will be? What's the existing rear yard, the dimensions?
The existing rear yard is 30 plus 15. It's 45 feet by 15 feet wide, by 14 feet wide. The site is 15.
So it's now 45 feet wide or in depth,
Deep,
the depth.
Right, and we're going to add 15 feet, so the resultant garden will be 15 feet by 30 feet.
I thought you said it was 14 feet wide.
I'm sorry about that. That's just where the side walls of their neighbors step in. So our garden gets
So
smaller. That's all.
it'll still meet the requirement for the
Yeah.
30-foot rear yard.
Yes, it will. Yes, it
Okay.
will.
Okay. And the visibility, I think you mentioned it.
Yeah, the mock-up, we can't see it from the street, which is the image on the left. And the mock-up on the right is from the rear yard.
So you only see it at the rear elevation.
Yes, yes, we do. And this is views from the front, from the neighbor's roof. You can see the mechanical piece on top there, which is another 5.5 feet, which cannot be seen from the street either.
So you don't see it from the street, but you will see it at the rear.
Yeah.
And
we're
people
gonna-
looking down from that huge apartment building will see it, right?
Yes, yes, and we'll show you, we have views of that.
Okay.
So the first one we're going to show is how we think this is an appropriate addition, not only to the house, not only to the immediate neighbors, but also to the neighbors beyond. So where we sort of see this bookend, sort of the transition from the smaller, both in elevation and in plan, that the masonry just starts to step back in a more gradual way, where right now 63, excuse me, is sort of it's almost a missing a tooth, if you will. And we sort of see this as sort of a natural growing in of a missing tooth, sort of the natural evolution of the donut itself, and that it's been split in half is for landmarks and half is not. And this is literally the view from the apartment building behind us. And it sort of creates more of a unified facade, which we think sort of creates a more unified whole to the donut itself. Let me show you a couple more images of how that looks. So as you said, this is looking down on the project. This is an axonometric from the 32-story tower and how it looks. And we're looking basically at the block of what is the landmark section. This is looking at it from the other point of view. And here I want to point out on the far right, you can see the stairs, the public access from 93rd Street that comes into this public space. This is the entry to this public space from 93rd Street. You can see it's gated. There's a sign here on the left. I'm sorry? It's open from 9 a.m. to dusk. And you go down a few flights of stairs into this lower court. This is inside the public space, looking right down the donut. You can see here in the corner, there's a raised platform, sort of this platform steps, if you will, almost like a little stage here in the corner with these concrete planters on it. It's from this space here, you can see our addition, and from the stairs and the area between these columns and this light post here. If you look to the far left, you can see the light over here. This is the through corridor that takes us back over to 94th Street.
When you say you can see from the courtyard, what you're seeing is the addition into the rear yard. You aren't seeing the penthouse. Or are you?
We will.
Oh,
we will.
okay.
I'm showing you this is the entry from 94th. I'm going to show you here in the next. This is moving through under the building. This is also gated and open from 9 a.m. to dusk. And it's going up between these two columns. You could see in the distance the yellow school bus. That's 93rd Street. So from here, we go up these steps, and it's this area between the two columns that we get a shot of our addition. You can see the penthouse mock-up right there in the center of the screen. This is a view in the summertime. This is the mock-up now, and a dotted outline not only of the 4-story addition, but also the buildings next to it. It's a little difficult to read through the branches. And then this is a rendering that on the right that removes the branches, so you can actually see it in more detail. The rendering on the left shows it behind the existing trees. But the intent is to create a more unified composition where this addition sort of fits in. And in this particular case, just because of the scale of the neighbors and also, you know, in the historic fabric, but also the way it completes the donut. So it's our intention that this creates more of a sort of unified donut in the back.
Is that your presentation?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I know, I think Lo is here from Carnegie Hill Neighbors. We're going to go to the public first. Thank you.
Okay, Lo?
Yes, okay. Had trouble unmuting. My name is Lo Vandervalk. I'm representing Carnegie Hill Neighbors. I want to touch on various aspects. One is the notion that there will be symmetry, or that the addition mirrors the building, 3 buildings to the west, number 57. That is not totally true, because this building will have a rooftop addition. 57 does not have a rooftop addition. And currently, all 4 of the brownstones that are bracketed by the taller buildings have no rooftop addition. So this will bring a whole new element into the composition. Also, this is a very small building. The other buildings are more than 15 feet wide. And as you do the rear yard addition and you view it from the mews, from the plaza in the courtyard, public courtyard, if you go to page, say, 32 or 34, you can see, yeah, it's 32. Yeah, you can see that, that's page 34. Now going back to 32. This is quite a big addition from the courtyard. And now if you go back 2 pages, yes, now you view these smaller 3 brownstones, not including the larger one that had been expanded in the 90s. Then there's a lovely small scale composition, and now this is overwhelmed by a huge addition in the rear yard, and of course the rooftop addition. Also want to bring out that the rooftop addition will obscure or destroy the 2 historic windows facing west. That's an unusual feature. We don't normally see this, but they were nevertheless built, we believe, around the 1930s, when there was a major upgrade of the neighboring building to the east, number 65 East 93rd Street. And those are lovely lovely windows, and they are part of the historic fabric of this area. We do not have to say, oh, we're going to achieve greater symmetry or greater balance. When you destroy historic fabric, that is not looked upon well by the Landmarks Commission and the whole purpose of preservation. So plus the fact, of course, that 5th story addition is totally out of line with the 4 other in between brownstones. And now finally, I would like to come to the point of the status of the plaza. You know, we keep talking about a donut, and the whole idea of the donut is that this is a confined space. It's not viewable by the public because the public doesn't get inside the donut. It's only viewable by people who live inside the donut or border it inside. But this is different. This is a public plaza. And according to the is this public plaza a public right-of-way as defined by Landmarks, which stresses that if it's visible from the public right-of-way, then there are higher bars of admission or of acceptance that come into play. Now, if I read from the rules of the City of New York and number 103-09A10, the public right-of-way is defined as a public highway, railroad, street, avenue, alley, public driveway, sidewalk, roadway, or any other public place or public way. And so this includes this public courtyard, which was created in order to allow for bonus floors at that corner building, 40 East 94th. So what we're really looking at is everything, all the floors being added are visible from the public way. That's a huge thing. You seldom, I don't think you could name another building like this, another situation like this in the Upper East Side. So I think that we need to apply tougher criteria, and therefore I'm reluctant about the size of those rear yard additions for all floors, all 4 floors, and then on top of that, the 5th floor addition. And, you know, there was also a sort of a custom that you wouldn't fill in the last floor before the top floor, so that the existing cornice line of a building in the rear would remain intact. The fact that 57 violated many of these considerations is a separate issue. However, from the public plaza, as you pass through it, 57 is hardly visible, as we saw in the earlier photo at 32 and 34. So I think that this committee needs to take a very hard look at the issues involved. Thank you. Thank you for.
Thank you, Lo. Said, is there anyone else from the public present?
Yes, but I did have a question for Lo. He sent us an image.
Yes.
So
oh, thank you so much, Saida. Yes, those are the 2 windows that will be covered, and you'll notice the right one is the larger one, and in many ways it is well articulated, and it mirrors the windows in the front of the building. I don't have a good picture of that here, but it does, and then the other window is smaller, but that's part of the historic fabric. And this building was designed for the architect Hamilton Russell, and he must have had played a role, but that's speculative. The point is that 65 is a very significant building. It has its own name in the designation report. Okay, so I've elaborated on that side window, and I hope it will not be destroyed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lo.
Okay,
So we
next
can go to
have-
the committee perhaps in the reverse order. And oh, there are other members of the public.
Yes, there are
Sorry.
other members.
Sorry.
Okay, Dominic, confirm unmuting.
Thank you very much. I'm Dominic Wilson. I live at 61 East 93rd Street. I appreciate the opportunity to comment to all of you. I also appreciate that it's been a long meeting. I wanted to also voice some concerns with the proposed plans, and wanted to quickly highlight 5 things that I think are of concern. The first is that the proposed additions that we see here are a pretty substantial increase in space and volume to the property. They changed the original outlines and structure of the property, both to the rear and above the current building. There was presumably an option to mirror, the smaller, older extensions, which don't cross the whole of the lot and which are only 2 stories high. This is like the maximalist filling of space subject to the 30-yard rule. You just bring the whole building back as far as you're allowed to. The second is that the style of the change is, at least, to my eye, look inappropriate for a landmarked district, given the designs. They look more like modern modular additions. They're going to change the look of the current rear facades in ways that don't reflect the older existing work in 61 and 59, or the general character of the historic district. You can see that pretty clearly when you look at the mock-ups on pages 22 and 26 of the proposal. The third thing, which has come up repeatedly, all of those proposed additions are clearly visible, not just from surrounding buildings, but from that public walkway and courtyard, which runs past Carnegie Hills Towers at 40 East 94th Street. You saw that, on a number of those mock-up pictures. That is a standard public space. It does close at night, but it's fully used by the public. But I would say also, many residents of Carnegie Hill Towers at 40 East 94th Street are going to have those additions fully visible. The rooftop addition is going to be visible to residents of 55 East 93rd Street, which is the old Alamo building. 64 East 94th Street, which backs onto this, is going to have a full view of that rear facade shift as it's presented. And some residents on the south side of the street here on East 93rd, 60, 66, 68, are all going to be able to see the rooftop addition. So a lot of people are going to be able to see this, including, you know, the members of the public that spend time in that area. The fourth thing is that the proposed additions are going to replace that existing rear facade with, you know, this highly visible modern extension. I would argue that to a degree that removes the symmetry between these older matching two-story structures at 59 and 61. It blocks off obviously a large part of the original wall on the west-facing wall of 65 East 93rd Street, which you saw in those pictures. And the rooftop addition is also pretty sizable. I think it's the only major additional level above the original rooftops that they would represent in a long line of buildings in the street and along the block. I don't think there are any other residential buildings on the block that have a penthouse addition above the original roof line. And as the prior speaker, I think, pointed out, it also interrupts at a 4-story level the common roof line that we have going now from 59, 61, 63 at the back, which is at the moment a uniform line at that top level. The final thing, which came up a little bit there, both of the proposed additions are going to significantly impinge on access to light for the neighboring properties by blocking the access to the windows, which is obviously a pretty obvious way of doing that, by blocking the light that comes into the other buildings at the back, and by, on the rooftop addition, by blocking the light to an old long-standing skylight feature that provides a lot of the upper floor light at 61 East 93rd. So we've set those concerns out in more detail in a letter to the committee. I don't know whether these letters successfully make it towards you all, but I do really appreciate your listening to the concerns here and the work that you're doing to try and preserve the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. And we do see the letters, just to reassure you.
Okay, we have Robert.
Yes, hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, how are you? Good.
Could you give your address, please?
I didn't, I'm about to. So my name is Robert Brinberg, and my sister Claire and I are the beneficial owners of 65 East 93rd Street. The property adjacent to 63 East 93rd. I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity to share our perspectives this evening on the proposed project. Our late father, Louis Brinberg, purchased the building in 1961. It's been in our family ever since. Our mother was actually his one-time tenant, and their relationship quickly transitioned from one of landlord and tenant to husband and wife. My sister and I grew up in the building. Our father passed away in the building, and our mother still lives in the building today. In fact, she still acts in the capacity of landlord. She's 90 years old, and despite our best efforts to outsource building management to a third party, she's stubbornly refused to relinquish the role.
9 o'clock at the earliest.
Claire and I may be her children, but the building is truly her baby in a way that we never could be. And under her watchful eye, the brass handles on the front doors are always meticulously polished. The doors are always freshly painted. Curbside planters flower in the spring and so forth. And taking care of that building has been her labor of love, and it's also the reason I'm here today on behalf of my family. Ironically, the building was built in conjunction with the construction of 63 East 93rd Street, as was mentioned earlier, in 1891. 63 and 65 actually appeared on the same new building application, which is a fact that I learned recently. In 1931, the facade of 65 East 93rd Street was replaced by its currently roughly textured brick facade. The facade features steel casement windows, which were described as historic by the expanded Carnegie Hill Historic District Designation Report. The west-facing windows that you saw moments ago are identical to the windows on the southern facade, except the northmost of those two windows has a beautiful and unique arch shape. We are, of course, concerned about how the character of our building would be altered by the proposed rooftop addition at 63 East 93rd. In particular, based on our review of the plans, the two west-facing windows of the 5th floor of 65 East 93rd would be entirely covered by the proposed addition, as Joseph, I believe his name was, referenced earlier. And page 25 of his plans illustrates the fates of those windows. Should the proposed plans be approved, they'll simply disappear from view as if they never existed, which is a bit sad. And it's a bit jarring to us that an apartment that's been featured in Architectural Digest could suddenly see two of its windows covered by bricks. But I'm aware that interior conditions and quality of life considerations aren't taken into account during these proceedings. On the other hand, we hope that you'll all consider the fact that the windows that would be concealed by the construction are clearly visible from the public space connecting 93rd and 94th Street. And one of the windows is in fact partially visible from the south side of 93rd Street. You can see the top of the window from the vantage point of directly in front of the Spence School, where my daughter goes, incidentally. We've just recently found out about these proposed plans this past Thursday and haven't had enough time to become educated on the process. We also haven't had the opportunity to meet with our new neighbors and discuss the plans with them. If they happen to be listening into the call today, we'd love to meet them and discuss any solutions that might be available and amenable to all. Ultimately, we're going to need to work together to move the project along, regardless of the final scope. And if our new neighbors are listening, we hope you hear from you soon, or please let us know the best way we can get in touch with you. And with that, I thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Who's next, Saida?
I have Terrence. Terrence, confirm unmuting.
Yes. Does that unmute?
Yes.
My name is Terrence Eagleton. I live at 72 East 93rd Street. Are you able, please, to pull up page 4 of the architect's proposal, which has, I'm sorry, page 5, which has the black and white tax photo from 1940?
1 second, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've been attending these absolutely fascinating community board meetings for a long time, and I really love them. And thank you all for your time and volunteer work. The most enthusiastic response I have ever seen from this committee to any plan was in 2005, when the Rifkins, the new owners of 11 East 93rd Street, made their proposal for the restoration of that townhouse. Central to your enthusiasm was the restoration of the stoop. And that established to the committee that the whole project was a restoration of how it was, and that was a demonstration of their intent to operate in good faith and for the sake of the community. Therefore, I was really struck in looking at this plan that a stoop existed and that a stoop is not a part of the plan. And if you look at this black and white tax photo, the bend in the building that was described is a consequence of the stoop approaching a door that's set back, and then the parlor extending forward by that small bay. So therefore, when I hear the word when the architect uses the word appropriate, I don't buy into it, and I don't believe it. Now, could we go please to page 4 of that plan, which shows the street, not the north side of 93rd Street, which the buildings from the Alamo up to 65. So looking at that, though, that photograph illustrates that there's an uninterrupted roof line from 57 to 63. And it is, I believe that the penthouse addition is absolutely visible from the street. If you stand near the or next to the side of the corner bookstore on the sidewalk, you can clearly see evidence of the proposed penthouse addition. So I think that I'm undone by the words appropriate, because the appropriate thing to do would clearly be to leave the roof unmolested and continue the roof line as exists from those other buildings on the front. On the back, I find the addition to be grotesquely large, not appropriate. I find it box-like, as though dropped from above onto the building, and it is completely visible from the Alamo and Carnegie Hill Tower courtyard, and it absolutely changes the nature of the rear space. So I am asking you as a neighbor and resident to vote no on all aspects of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Next, we have Susan. Susan, confirm unmuting. You should see a prompt on your
Thank
screen.
you.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Susan Burley. I'm the co-op president of 64 East 94th Street. So we actually, everybody on the south side of our building looks at this addition. And I had a couple questions. What is the current square footage of, is this a single family home? And what is the current square footage and what is the proposed square footage?
It's a single family home. The existing square footage is 3250 and the total proposed would be 4385.
And the penthouse looks like it has something running up higher than the story poles up against the
mechanical.
That looks like a chimney.
That's the chimney next door. The chimneys here are of the building on 65.
Well, but your story pole goes up higher, hugging the
Yeah.
building to the east.
Yeah, that was the mechanical. It's not shaded in red here. Sorry, can you see the mouse on top of the drawing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a HVAC piece of equipment. It's 5'6" high, 30 by 48.
Okay, so
Should go to the
this
mock-up.
additional penthouse for all of us that face south into this is adding the height of the penthouse plus the height of the mechanicals. And what amount is that? How many feet does that come to?
The mechanical is
And
an additional.
the height of the penthouse together.
The height of the penthouse, the total is 54 and a half feet off a grade.
Well, I just mean the additional story. What was the height of the
Right.
additional story?
It's 11 feet. The penthouse is 11 feet from the slope. The cornice is 47 and a half feet, 48 and a half feet off the
And
street.
then how much on top of the 11 feet of the penthouse is the mechanical?
5 and a half.
So, okay, so we're looking at 16 and a half feet of additional height.
Yeah, you see it here, it's behind, yes.
And is that a like a patio or a terrace in front of it?
Yes.
And so when this pushes out towards our building, the Guardsman, is it flush with the brownstones or is it coming out further into the
No,
the
it's,
rear
it
garden.
it's only comes out 15 feet. It's a 15 by 15 footprint. And it
Mhm.
aligns with the 2-story and the 4-story additions to the 4 townhouses.
And does it block anything on that western building?
Western building,
So we know that it's going to take 2 windows away from the easternmost building, the
Oh.
western building where it
no,
pushes out.
no. Not at all.
So there are no windows.
No,
on
there are
that.
no lot line windows. No, non-existing.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming.
Okay, next we have Nancy Horn. Nancy, confirm unmuting.
Hi, this is Nancy Horn. I own 6E in the Alamo, 55 East 93rd Street. I've owned it since 1989. And I only just today, because I don't happen to live there right now, learned of this addition and saw a photograph which was posted here of what it would look like outside of my window. I'm in the rear on the north side and have 2 windows on the east, and see that it would be decreased value in my apartment, and also not staying with the look and feel of the entire neighborhood. It feels clunky and heavy and like it's jamming footage into an existing building. And it just does not feel like Carnegie Hill and the neighborhood and everything that is so lovely. And that includes proportion and volumes and things like that. So as an owner that would look straight at this, I would oppose it being built. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
We don't have any other raised hands from members of the public.
Thank you, Saida. We can go to the committee and I guess go in reverse order this time.
Okay. Marco?
Thank you. Oh, let me say that from the street level, I think it's completely not visible. And as I thought that was, at the beginning, I thought that's a very good idea, very good enlargement. However, when we see the public way, which is the plaza, it changed everything dramatically. Yeah, that's it. You can see it, and thank you for this rendering or this picture with these dot lines. The issue what I perceive is clearly that it increase the bulky of that section, and it is excessive, and then therefore the rooftop addition become also visible. I understand also the issue right here is this is actually a very narrow lot. 15 feet, hard to do any activities for any family. 15 feet is almost the width of the car or the train. So I understand that you need more space. However, at the same time, it tells how precious was the land at the time when it was built and how precious was this area, especially for Carnegie development. So the lots has been subdivided in a very, right now is unlawful to build a lot with 15 feet. You require at least a minimum 18 feet. So in that direction, I think I understand, I'm very sympathetic that you need to have some enlargement. However, seeing the right there, your proportions from the public way, it changed dramatically everything, and it's excessive and very bulky, the rear enlargement, these 4 stories. And if you remove these 4 stories or just have near to the adjacent property, so now the rear yard, the roof addition become very predominantly. And I think the neighbors complain properly, and I think I agree with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco.
Anthony, you are next.
Okay. I'm stumped. I have a I have an intuition, excuse me, I have an intuition about that there is something not quite right about the penthouse addition. But I am a little bit as yet undecided, excuse me, about the rear yard addition. A lot of that has to do with wondering about the question of what is, how much is too much? When does something tip over from being, well, that's okay, to being excessive? I think normally I think that if it's not visible, if something isn't visible from the public way, we should give it a lot of leeway. I think that in a way, the view of it from the plaza is in a way, it's not that important. The building was the original building, the original house was not intended basically to be seen from the rear, except by the immediate neighbors. And the creation of this public way is kind of opens up some possibilities that I don't know what I think about yet. I will listen to the comments of my fellow board members.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
I have no further questions. The comments from the public were very instructive. Thank you.
Thank you. Alita?
Thank you. I oppose this completely for every reason that Lo so well articulated and expressed, as well as the other neighbors in the vicinity and adjacent and behind. And in addition, landmarks and historic districts are supposed to enhance neighborhoods and enhance communities. Covering up windows is never an enhancement in my book. So on that basis alone, I would have to vote no. And I would on the rooftop and on the rear yard, again, for everything that was expressed so well by by the people in the community who spoke. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, I have high regard for the previous remarks also. I'm going to take you back to square one. Just as a note of clarification, your rooftop addition is 11 feet high at its highest point, the pinnacle of a sloped roof. So tell me where you have 4-story addition. Are you excavating a basement to imply that that's 1 story that you're adding, and then in fact you're adding an additional 3 on top? If that's the case, show me the additional 3. When I look at the addition, I see sort of a white box sitting on top. We haven't even discussed materials, so I want to talk about that. But at the moment, I see sort of a white bulky box. And if it only goes to 11 feet high at its highest point, where are your additional stories? Where are they? I'm not understanding.
Michelle, they're at the rear.
I know, I want to see them. Can you point them out?
Can you see the section on the screen?
Yeah,
Okay, so this is the basement.
yeah,
This is the parlor level. This
yeah.
is the next level. This is the 4th level. 1, 2, 3, 4. The existing building is here.
Oh, okay, okay. Now, so what you're doing is you're extending into the rear yard the
Yes.
existing stories. You're not putting 4 stories on top of a 4-story
No,
building.
no, no, no. I'm
But that
sorry.
was your original comment, and
I'm
that's
sorry.
what
I meant to
confused
say,
me
so sorry about that. A
completely.
4-story addition to a 4-story building. I'm sorry. You're absolutely
Okay,
right.
that's
No, you're right. That came out completely. I
all right.
apologize
Well,
for that.
good. Okay, you've clarified it. That's fine. So
Sorry.
now I understand, and that's why you are losing 15 feet of your rear yard,
Mhm.
which was 45, and it's going to 30.
Yes.
Now I get it.
And
Okay.
we're
So-
filling in just as far as the neighbor next door, the 2-story addition. 15 foot.
Yes, you're coming 15 feet into your rear yard,
Yes.
which lines you up with your neighbor's
Yep.
2-story. Okay, I
Yep.
got that.
All 3 of the neighbors to our
All right,
west.
now let me just ask a couple of questions about the construction of what is that made of? The piece that you're putting on top, and it's 11 feet high. And then I believe you said it was 15 feet by 18 feet. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That's a
And
footprint.
11 feet high at its highest point.
Yeah.
And where is the accessibility to that? Is it from inside the house, or do you have an exterior?
yes.
How do you?
Yes, I'll show you the plans. This is the rooftop addition right here.
Yeah.
All right, so we come up the stairs here when you go out a door here to a rear terrace and out a front door here to a rear terrace. This part here is a trellis. This is the stair down.
Interior stair.
Yes, interior
That's the
stair.
interior stair of
Yes.
this building. This building
Yes.
has stairs that go up each of the 4 floors, and now it's going to extend up to the penthouse, correct?
Yes, here are the
Okay.
stairs right here, yes.
All right. So what is that made of? It looked like stucco from the
Stucco.
picture.
It's
Oh, it
stucco.
is stucco.
Yes, it is stucco.
All right. And the front of the building is brownstone, and the
Yes.
back of the building is brick.
Is red brick, yes.
And the top of the penthouse is stucco. So you've got a lot going
Yes.
on there. As I look at the windows, they don't reflect at all at the penthouse or the sliding doors, whatever those are, but they don't
Mhm.
reflect at all what I think are casements on the rear facade. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And they don't reflect anything at the front of the building either. And those windows are not part of this application? Are you replacing them? What are you doing to the
A
front?
separate application.
Okay, so, but at the moment, the windows in the rear, the windows on the penthouse, and the
Mhm.
windows in the front of the building do not relate to each other in any way. Is that correct?
Other
I
than
think so.
color, you're
Well, I
correct.
mean, in terms of material or anything, they don't relate
I
at all.
believe the ones in the front, it will be wood windows. The ones
But
in the
they're one
back,
over one unless.
that's
you-
right. They're one
Okay.
over one.
All right, so they don't relate at all to anything. All right.
Mm.
Now, now, how much height do the mechanicals add? Because that was what the neighbor was trying to get to, where you said it was 54 and a half feet, but that's from the ground.
Yes, on top of that,
The
it's
dimension
5.5
we're
feet.
looking for is the height of the new addition plus
Mm-hmm.
mechanicals, not the measurement to
Mm-hmm.
the ground, just the height of the new addition plus the mechanicals. How many feet is that?
16 feet and a half.
Okay, 16 feet. All right. Now, with respect to the plaza, which I assume that's a pop, strange because there's no seating in there, so it's open to the public, but I don't know. I guess there's no seating. I guess they just walk. It is visible from that. So, all right, I'm not so frantic about that, but I just don't think that any of the elements relate to one another on this building. And so I don't think the elements are appropriate. Although I can say, as I look at 63 now, that I think it's the most beautiful rear facade. It's asymmetrical. It's a mishmash of windows. So in some way, your casement windows are an improvement, but they don't relate. And there's no setback. It would have helped if there was a setback, but they don't seem to relate to anything else on the building. So for those reasons and all the commentary I've heard, not to mention the obstruction of two beautiful windows and windows that people depend on for light and air, I don't think I would support this. But thank you. And thank you for the clarifications. I've been bewildered looking for 4 stories. All right, thank you.
Thank
If
you.
I may, with the windows in the rear elevation, the windows are responding to the other context back here. Because it is such a unique case, because it is so thin, because it is squished in, and because the buildings next door are taller, this is why we came out at 4 feet, at 4 stories, to try to align that edge and actually create a more unified facade in the back to the, but
Well, but they're
that
not,
is
the other
the
buildings
intention.
don't really have casement. They're completely, 59 is a conglomeration of windows,
Yeah,
65.
well, it does have a couple of
Michelle,
casements
we're
in
gonna,
But at
59.
any rate,
And
those
so
were my
does,
comments.
I'm
I
sorry.
see. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
Yes. I have no problem with the front view either. I don't think you can see anything, and there's no problem there. I would probably be very happy with this if it weren't for the fact that this is a public view of this rear yard. I think he's designed a handsome rear yard. The rear facade is handsome, and in an ordinary block, I would think this is a good. Unfortunately, this is not closed donut hole, and I think that the change. I'm trying to make up my mind whether this is okay. I think the loss of a couple of windows is very sad and bad, but I don't think that that's a part of a decision of whether this addition is appropriate. So I'm not sure yet whether I think the rear yard addition in this situation is acceptable. So I'm still mulling it over. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
David, did you want to comment? I'm sure you do. Oh, Kimberly, we haven't gone to Kimberly yet. Oh, I don't think we went to Kimberly yet. Sorry, David.
You're correct. Sorry, Jane. Kimberly?
Yep, thank you. Don't worry, Jane, I'll be brief. I think what the public had said had really persuaded me, particularly those comments about the windows. So I'm anxious to hear what both David and Jane have to say, but as of right now, I cannot support this one.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Well, I have to echo some of the confusion that I think we all feel about this. I can certainly make the case for doing it. Covering lot line windows is something we've done before. And why not? Because lot line windows can be covered. They're not legal windows. On the other hand, I don't understand that white penthouse. To me, that's totally out of context. So, on the other hand, I could make the case for stepping down and the penthouse to some extent does that. The piece of mechanical equipment is really insignificant. It's pretty tiny and is sort of meaningless. The design is, I think as Elizabeth said, it's sort of okay. Nothing to write home about. And on the other hand, could certainly make the case for it because it's 4 stories. It extends the 4 stories. And quite frankly, the 2 two-story additions are pretty undistinguished, in fact, pretty awful when you look at them. Uh, However, and I think Anthony made the point very well that when you think about this, this was not meant to be seen from the public way when it was designed. And if it were not meant to be seen from the public way, I might feel a little bit more accepting of it. But if I just look at it intuitively and say, does it look right? Does it feel right? I think I might have been very comfortable with a two-story addition, but I'm not comfortable with what I'm looking at. So I make the case for it as the architect did, but words don't necessarily substitute for just what you look at. And I think that I cannot support this. So that's my view of it.
David, thank you. Eloquent as always. I myself will not support the application. Those two lot line windows, although we do, lot line windows can be covered. This is kind of a little bit different. It's a beautiful building next door. That those two lot line windows are part of the historic designation report. And I think it would be a tragedy to cover them up with the penthouse. The penthouse didn't have to be quite so big. And I think the rear addition is very, very bulky. And as everyone has pointed out, it's very unusual in that it's very visible from this plaza. I'm not sure how much that plaza is actually used. It looks pretty dreary to me. But in any case, I cannot support the application as presented. So is anybody willing to make a resolution about this?
Resolution that it be disapproved.
As presented. Is there a second?
Michelle and Alita.
Okay, I think we can go to a vote.
Okay, 1 second while I unmute everyone. Elizabeth?
Yes.
Elizabeth is a yes. Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Marco?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous disapproval.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application is 167 East 73rd Street, individual landmark, Chatuso Architecture. I hope I pronounced that correctly. A two-story building designed by George L. Amaro and constructed in 1903-04. Application is for the installation of one sign and two flags serving the Consulate General at the Slovak Republic. And is the architect here?
Yes.
Good evening. My name's Joe
And
Chatuso.
tell me
You did
how to
say that right.
pronounce it.
Thank you.
I did.
Chatuso, you hit it spot on first try. Good job.
Thank you. Now let's see if
So-
you're spot on with your proposal.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in the presentation. Can everybody see this cover page?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the Consul General of the Slovak Republic has purchased East 167 East 73rd Street. It's a designated landmark just outside of the Upper East Side Historic District extension on 73rd Street between 3rd Avenue and Lexington Avenue. Our proposal is for new signs and one new sign and two new flags on the exterior. Images here that you see on the left is the 1940s tax photo. In the center is from the designation report from the 80s. And on the right is the previous condition from the previous owner, which was the Vilcek Foundation. These are current photos, panoramas. The top is showing the north side of the street. This is our building right in the middle, 167 East 73rd. Lexington Avenue is to your left, and 3rd Avenue is to your right. The bottom image is the south side of the street. You can see just on the left side of the image is 167 East 73rd.
Sorry,
3rd
Joe,
Avenue to your
you
left,
are a little
Lexington
bit
Avenue to your right.
glitchy. Hello, Joe, you're a little bit glitchy. Try turning off your video.
Okay.
May help. And then you can go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, much better.
Okay. So this is a closer up shot of our building in the middle, 167 East 73rd. There are designated landmarks on both sides. There's a twin building to our left, 165 East 73rd Street. They were both originally constructed as carers' houses. They've evolved over their lives. They've been private residences, office space. The last user was community use with artists in residence. These are some precedent images of consulates in the immediate area. Our building, if you look at the map on the bottom right, is right in the center. There are 2 designated landmarks. One's at 690 Park Avenue, that's the Italian consulate. And there's the Czech consulate at 320 73rd, just 2 blocks down. And then there's the Consulate General of France at on 5th Avenue. That's not a designated landmark, but it's in the district. All of these are also EU members. That's why there's 2 flags, the country and the EU flag. The drawing shows the existing conditions on your left and the proposed conditions on your right. We're proposing to put a double flagpole in the center on top of the existing stone detail and to add a sign immediately adjacent to the doors in the same location as the previous owner. These are some details of the flagpole and the sign. The flagpole will be mounted to the top of the stone pediment. There's evidence that there was something there mounted before. We're not quite sure what it was. We couldn't find any photographic evidence. There would be 6 bolts anchored into the top of this stone pediment. And this on the right shows the sign. It's basically fitting into the coursing of the stonework, slightly recessed off the sides. It's pretty much exactly where the previous sign was for the Vilcek Foundation. Same size, it's roughly 2 square feet. This image, again, it shows our north of the street, 167 East 73rd is directly in the middle, existing conditions. And then this shows the proposed conditions with the flags in the middle and the sign on the pier. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. That was very clear. Last photo was very helpful. Do we have any comments from the public?
No raised hands from any members of the public.
I think we should bring Mr. Gattuso back so we can see him again.
Okay. You can turn your video on again. There you go.
Thank you. And I think we'll go to the committee and we'll start at the beginning of the alphabet.
Elizabeth?
This puts us in a bit of a quandary because nice to have a consulate, but the flagpole and the flags just simply are not suitable for this street. So they really out of place. Most unfortunate, and I don't know how we should address it because we're dealing with
Elizabeth, I think we're having some trouble hearing you. Could you try to speak up?
Okay. Yes, I said I think we're in a bit of a quandary because it's a foreign consulate and this is a diplomatic issue in many ways. But the flags and flagpoles are totally out of place on this building and on this street. So I don't know how we should deal with this. I'll have to give it some thought. Fine, we can live with it. That doesn't. But,
I think we're
that's
losing
where
you
I
again,
am.
Elizabeth.
What?
We're losing you again.
What did you hear me?
Well, I heard the beginning, but not the end.
The last we
Okay.
heard was you were giving some thought to it. So do you want to continue or do you want us to continue to speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Again, sorry to bore you to death. What I said before was that because this is a consulate and a diplomatic issue in many ways, it puts us in a difficult position because the flagpoles and flags are totally out of place on this building and on this street. So I don't know quite how we address it. But so I'm sitting here thinking about what we do. And thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Michelle, next.
What's the length of the flag poles? How far extended out are they?
They're 10-foot length. I'm going to show you detail, but because of the kind of geometry of it, they extend out 7 feet from the facade.
Oh, because you're setting them back on that ledge. Is that what you mean? You froze.
They're on the pediment, but they also, if you see that, it's a biparting flagpole, so it angles out from the facade. So it's a 10-foot pole, but it's only 7-foot extension from the facade.
Okay. Now you showed us some examples of other embassies or whatever with flagpoles. Were those in the middle of the street?
Yes. So for a straight up example, the Czech Republic consulate, which is block.
You're freezing, so you're fading in and out.
73rd Street's in the middle of the block, and it has 2 exits to check. Okay. So the Czech Republic consulate is on 321 East 73rd Street. It's 2 blocks away. Same the street. It has 2 flags. The Italian consulate, also another individual landmark on Park Avenue, has flags, and the
That's
French
on Park.
consulate.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm just trying to show you examples in the Upper East Side District. They're
But
very
the
close.
others are in the middle of the street. Let me ask you another question. The plaque that you're replacing, it's the same size and the same place as the preceding one. What's it made out of? Is it brass or bronze and the
It's
lettering?
stainless steel. It's stainless steel.
Oh. Is that what the plaque was before?
Yes. And there's really no metal detailing on this facade. It has wood windows and detailing, which is a kind of a dark brown, and everything else is stonework.
And what's the lettering on the steel? What's the coloring of the lettering? Is it recessed, raised?
It's recessed. It's paint-filled letters. It's going to be black letters on stainless.
On stainless. I could live with this. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What are the last question? What are the flagpoles made out of?
They're steel. They're painted steel.
So it'll be basically painted what?
It's the same color brown as the windows.
Okay. So they won't be a stainless or a metal like the sign. Could you go back to that photo?
No, they'll be painted. Yes.
As I look at it, I'm thinking that they're very dark. I'm wondering, I know you reached to do it on the windows. I can approve this, but I do think that they're too dark in color. I think maybe you'd want to get them closer to the color of the facade of the building so that they don't stand out so much. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Alita?
Okay, thank you for your input. Thank you.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful block. I've walked there with my daughter and pointed out how beautiful those buildings are. And you have such a different sense than other streets where the buildings are even just a little taller and squared off around the doors like that. But there's such a peacefulness. I don't have trouble with the concept of flags. I have trouble with these flags just because they seem really large. The other buildings that you pointed out are significantly larger. And so the flags are a small percentage of those. I know it's not our job to design, but that's just my opinion. I have no trouble with the sign and glad to have you in our neighborhood. Thank you.
And just to clarify, the flags we're showing are 4 foot by
Yeah, I've lost you. They're 4 foot by something.
foot. The others are shown at 4 foot by 6 foot. Most of the others we documented are 6 foot by 8 foot flags. So we did try and use a smaller standard size flag for this building.
Yeah, it's still from that image. They just look like they overwhelm the building a little bit. And I know it's hard to tell from a photograph, but because the building and the other building near it is just so exquisite, it seems to be a little overwhelming, but I know it's not our job. That's just my opinion. So I'm not really sure. It's for the reasons that Elizabeth had articulated. I'm not really sure where I stand on this either, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
Hi. Actually, I love this building. I think it's wonderful that it's being put to such an interesting use. I don't have any real objection to the flags. The only comment I would make, again, venturing into design, is that it's not so much for me that the flags are too big, but the flag poles seem to be, to me, too long. And that's, I can support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Marco?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I think everything has been said. Elizabeth, she make a very good point. This is a diplomatic issue, and I do not have a problem to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Kimberly?
Thank you. To echo what Marco was saying, I can approve this. I have no problem with this.
Thank you. Jane, David?
Jane first. Jane going to speak?
Oh, maybe
Is Jane still with us?
She had muted herself. You should be able to
Oh,
unmute
thank you, David. I think it's wonderful that there's going to be a consulate on this block. I know it's unusual to have flags in the mid block like this on such a small and scale building when you look at the other consulates like on Park Avenue, but I'm all for it. So I'm for the flags as well.
And I'm fully forward, and I think that the way the flags come back to one point minimizes their impact. And I think that the flags don't really take away from the street. Maybe they add actually a little bit of specialness. So I'm fine with it. Do we have somebody who would like to make a resolution?
Yes.
I'll
Michelle.
make, oh,
Sorry.
I was
Move
going
to approve as presented.
Do we have a second, Marco? Second.
Okay.
Well, let's call the roll, please, Saida.
Okay, 1 second while I unmute everybody. Elizabeth?
Abstain.
Michelle?
Yes.
Alita?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Marco?
Yes.
And Kimberly?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. We have 7 in favor and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Saida, and thank you for all of your help. If we could get rid of, oh, thank you. I'm sort of in favor of adjourning. It's been a long evening, and I hope any new business can wait until next month. I see Alita has her hand up.
Go ahead, Alita, you're
I'll
unmuted.
be very brief, Jane. It's with respect to the last meeting when we talked about a letter to the Landmarks Preservation Commission.
Yes,
Yeah, so I asked around and I don't think the building has really deteriorated substantially. I don't want to lose credibility by making a mountain out of what is right now a molehill. So I don't think the letter is required saying to, I mean, a general letter just saying not to let buildings become so deteriorated that they are then that the owners are then taking the position they should be demolished. But with respect to this building, I don't think it's at that level necessarily right now.
great. Okay, so we won't write a letter.
No, thank you.
Marco,
Your motion. I'm going to second your motion. Motion to adjourn. You said that. I'm going to
Okay.
second.
well, thank you. What an interesting evening.
Thank you.
And I might change my vote on our first application. I don't know, but I'll see all of you on Wednesday. Thank
Okay.
you, as
Thank you.
usual, for all your
Good night.
help.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone. Good night.
Thank you.